Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Reserved Investments, and thank you for joining me. For those that do not know, this is a factory sealed case of Nintendo Amiibos. This is a factory sealed case of 4 Corinne 2-player variant Super Smash Bros. Amiibos. And all of them are the same. So if you have a factory sealed case of Nintendo Amiibos, they were not assorted. They were pretty much packed by the character. So every single Amiibo that you're ever going to find in a factory sealed case is all the same. That is very important to start out this video with, because there's a lot of people that seem to remember toy collecting back in the 80s or 90s. If you guys remember the Power of the Force 2 Star Wars line that was produced by Hasbro back in the mid to late 1990s, you probably remember going to Toys R Us. If you were able to have a connection at Toys R Us, they would pretty much bring out a factory sealed case, and you would open it and you would go through the case, and some of the figures were short packed compared to other figures in that same action figure line. Nintendo did not do that with the Nintendo Amiibo line. This is a major misconception because a lot of people think that a lot of these figures, especially the earlier Super Smash Bros. Amiibos, were released in smaller quantities than other figures in that series. That is 100% false. Now, in today's world, in the year 2024, it is true that when Nintendo releases a new Amiibo, some of those Amiibos have a lower production run than others in that same line. But back in 2014, back in 2015, even all the way up through the initial Amiibo speculative frenzy, which pretty much lasted from 2014 all the way up through, I want to say, the end of 2017. All the Amiibos that were produced during that time, for the most part, if they were part of the Super Smash Bros. Line, they have similar to close to exact production numbers as each and every previous Amiibo produced in that line. This is very important to point out because back on November 21st, 2014, when Nintendo released the original 12 coveted first Super Smash Bros. Amiibos in this series to retailers in the US, which were Mario, Donkey Kong, Fox McCloud, Link, Kirby, Yoshi, Pikachu, Marth, Peach, Wii Fit Trainer, the Villager, and Samus. There's a lot of individuals still to this day that think Marth, Wii Fit Trainer, and the Villager are either rare or scarce. That is 100% false. I want to let the record show that that thinking is why a lot of you paid people like me a premium to take home these particular products and actually call them an investment. A Nintendo Amiibo is not an investment. It never was. It is a speculative product. Nintendo produced this particular item because if you guys recall, back in 2014, Nintendo was in a little bit of trouble. Yeah, they had a lot of success going on with the Nintendo 3DS that struggled to get out of the gate, but their main console, the Nintendo Wii U, was failing at retail. A lot of people didn't know what it was. A lot of people were not interested in the product. Nintendo really had to put out a product to generate revenues to appeal to their shareholders. And Nintendo is getting a lot of flack from their shareholders because a lot of their shareholders were wondering, how could the mighty and great Nintendo mess up the marketing of their latest home video console at the time, known as the Nintendo Wii U? So this caused Nintendo to start to panic. They went back to the drawing board and they realized, hey, if they pull the plug on the Nintendo Wii U too early, there's a lot of people that bought into the console that are going to be very unhappy if now Timmy, Kimmy, and Poindexter Jr. have to go to the store and they got to buy a new Nintendo console when the last one just came out 2 years ago. So this caused Nintendo to put into the pipeline a lot of products that weren't really targeted for long-term growth. They were seen as simple cash grabs at the time. The first product that Nintendo really hit hardcore with, believe it or not, after the Amiibos was Pokemon Go. If you guys remember the frenzy of Pokemon Go, the downloadable video game, that was a mobile phone app. People still use it to this very day. That really allowed Nintendo some time to go back to the drawing board, tell their investors that they have things in the works, they're going to be okay. Their newest video game system is still coming out, which would be the Nintendo Switch. We all know that now. And they should just not worry about Nintendo's cash flows. Well, in that time, Nintendo needed a huge cash injection, and they got it with the success of Nintendo Amiibos. And this is why we're having this conversation, because I'm getting a lot of questions like, Sean, are Nintendo Amiibos, are they equivalent to Beanie Babies, Cabbage Patch Kids, Funko Pops, Pez dispensers, or are they more on par with vintage Star Wars figures? I mean, are we looking at a potential major financial investment in Nintendo Amiibos 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now, where prices skyrocket and there are certain variant figures out there that people are willing to pay thousands of dollars for? Well, it's a little bit more complex than that, and that's why we have to have this particular conversation. So for those unaware, when those particular first 12 Amiibos were launched on the retail store shelves back on 2014, they had a suggested retail price of $12.99 plus tax. Now, if you bought your Nintendo Amiibos at Toys R Us, you paid $13.99 plus tax, simply because Toys R Us had a massive selection of Nintendo Amiibos back in the day. I mean, if you would walk into a Toys R Us store back in the day when they were in their prime and you were looking for Nintendo Amiibos, they had a whole wall full of them. So all you had to do was know when they restocked Nintendo Amiibos. So if you wanted your Marth, if you wanted your Wii Fit trainer, if you wanted your Villager Amiibo, and you didn't mind paying $1 more for it, if you knew when Toys R Us was restocking Amiibos, chances are you easily had a chance to get those Nintendo Amiibos back in the day. You did not have to pay a reseller like me a hefty premium to buy them on eBay. But guess what? As human nature is, a lot of the Timmies, Kimmies, and Poindexters were going on collecting forums. They were going on Facebook groups. They were going on YouTube, and they were proclaiming that a lot of these items were quote-unquote rare and would have significant value in the future. This pretty much brought about a massive speculative frenzy for these particular objects. Again, between the years 2014 and 2017, Nintendo sold 39 million Amiibos worldwide. This does not include the Animal Crossing cards. This is just the actual Nintendo Amiibo figurines. That's how popular this product line was. This particular product line alone gave Nintendo a massive cash infusion. Remember, guys, again, if you go back towards this time frame, the Nintendo Wii U was considered a disaster on the retail scene. Nintendo was releasing a lot of these cash grab products like Pokemon Go, the Nintendo Amiibos. If you remember, this was the point in time when the original Nintendo NES Classic, the standalone device with 30 built-in games, came onto the market, that Nintendo also utilized mass-produced scarcity to promote. That really attracted a lot of scalpers, a lot of resellers like myself to go after, because we knew we could flip it on the secondary market for a significant profit. So what does this all mean? Well, first of all, we got to give credit where credit is due here. Nintendo played the Timmies, Kimmies, and Poindexters beautifully with the launch of the Nintendo Amiibo product line. I don't care if you're a fan of this product line. I don't care if you hate the product line. I don't care if you only bought into it in the beginning, then you tired of it. If you pretty much bought these items on the secondary market, you were playing right into Nintendo's hands, because all is what Nintendo did was they produced a lot of these in mass quantities, and certain Amiibos, they pretty much trickled into the market, meaning they didn't release them full force. They simply trickled them into the market to make it seem like some of these Amiibos were quote-unquote rare or hard to find. We now know that is not the case. And what Nintendo did brilliantly is they made sure that all the blame would be placed on secondary scalpers, resellers, the evil investors like myself that were able to buy these things by the factory sealed case and profit exponentially, not realizing it was Nintendo's fault that they just didn't release everything that they produced into the market all at once because they were worried it would oversaturate the market. Nintendo did an excellent job at utilizing mass-produced scarcity to promote these products. So does this mean that there is no organic collectability in these items at all? I want to be very clear on this. No, these particular items are one step above Funko Pops. These particular items are many steps above Beanie Babies. These particular items are well above Cabbage Patch Dolls and Pez dispensers. These particular items do have organic collectability. The problem you're going to have is, given the fact that Nintendo went back to the drawing board and kept re-releasing older Amiibos into the market, a lot of people were able to buy these, and a lot of people are sitting on them factory sealed. So you need to understand that there really is no such thing, with few exceptions, as a rare or hard to find Amiibo. Now, are there certain Amiibos that are harder to find than others? I'll give you a great example. The Mega Yarn Yoshi in the United States was a Toys R Us exclusive. It was released 2 separate times into the market. Believe it or not, the second time the Mega Yarn Yoshi was released into the market by Toys R Us, a lot of people had no interest in it. I remember going to Toys R Us and I was buying a Mega Yarn Yoshi for $39.99, and they had a promotion going on. If you bought a second Amiibo, you would get it at half price. I was able to get 2 Mega Yarn Yoshis, the big Yoshis, for $60 for 2 of them, meaning I paid $30 a piece. Well, today you can look on eBay what they're worth. I made a ton of money on this particular product line. And full disclosure, I still have, I think, 2 Mega Yarn Yoshis sitting in a climate-controlled storage unit. I kept 2 of them for myself. I have no idea why. I'll probably eventually at some point sell one of them off and just keep 1 for myself. I don't think that Nintendo will release that particular Amiibo again, simply because it was so esoteric. It was Mega Yarn Yoshi. I remember Nintendo did release the smaller cloth Yoshis for like $12.99 a piece. They later then upped the price to $15.99. But I don't think that Nintendo is ever going to get around to re-releasing the Mega Yarn Yoshis again. I hope I'm wrong on that, because if you look at what they're going for on the secondary market, it is insane. Again, some of these items have a lot of organic collectability. Would I attempt to invest in these items long term? The answer is no, not really. And what I mean by that is, I don't think that these items are going to be the next vintage Star Wars line. I think that some of them are going to have a lot of value on the secondary market going forward. I also think, though, a lot of them that are selling for a premium right now are going to start falling back in price, because I don't think a lot of people realize just how many of these are out there in most cases. Because what Nintendo is doing is they're simply re-releasing them again and again when a new game that merits them being released is created and released into the market. So for instance, if Nintendo would release another Star Fox game at some point, I guarantee you, probably the Fox McCloud, probably the Falco Amiibo, they would be pretty much re-released and sold into the market and have some functionality with that game. So that's really pretty much how Nintendo is handling the release of these products going forward. It's really murkying the market for a lot of people that want to collect these items long term, because there really is no point paying a premium on the secondary market for a lot of these items, because at some point Nintendo is just going to potentially re-release them by and large. Now, this is where it gets very interesting for you guys out there that are trying to collect this line. If you notice, look at the back of this Nintendo Amiibo. This is a Chrome Super Smash Bros. Amiibo that was released in the heyday. It was released back when Nintendo Amiibo speculation was soaring and people were going crazy for these at retail. If you notice the back of the packaging, it's very colorful, it's very detailed, it has a picture of the Amiibo, it tells you that it works both on the 3DS, it works on the wonderful Nintendo Switch. Well, guess what? If you look at the back of a box, the packaging of a current release Amiibo, this is what you get. It's very bland, it's very dry. What Nintendo is doing is there's only a handful of retailers left. Now that Toys R Us has pretty much died off. Now that Walmart really doesn't handle the Nintendo Amiibo line anymore. Target is hit or miss. Best Buy, hit or miss. It's really just Amazon and GameStop that pretty much carries Nintendo Amiibos. Or if you do live in the US, you can order directly from the Nintendo online store, assuming they have them in stock. But what Nintendo seems to be doing is they really seemed to tone down the amount of money that they're paying to promote and produce these particular items. That is evident by the boring back that a lot of the new Amiibos have on the open marketplace. So if you are collecting these particular items, there are several differences in packaging that really we need a separate video to discuss, because I do know there are a lot of variant collectors out there that are wondering, well, gee, Sean, what variant should I be looking for? Is it true that since these are the late released Nintendo Amiibos that have this boring backing, these are going to be worth more? Much like the Power of the Four Star Wars figures that came out in 1984, 1985, the coveted Final Last 17? It's very hard to answer that at present time. So I am going to be doing a follow-up video on this. I just want to give you the specifics that overall, most Nintendo Amiibos out there on the market today, they are not rare. They are not uncommon. There's really no such thing as a short-packed figure, especially if it was released back in the heyday during 2014 all the way up through 2017. A lot of these items are readily available, and they are hoarded by a lot of speculators, by a lot of evil resellers like myself. We are all sitting on a lot of these products. So if you are paying a premium for these particular items, please do so with caution. At present time, the future is still murky on where we go from here, but I don't see this particular product line becoming the next vintage Star Wars line. It's not going to be like Beanie Babies. It's not going to be like Funko Pops. Again, there is organic collectability here, but I don't see a blue snaggletooth equivalent in the Nintendo Smash Brothers line, or even the entire Amiibo line at present time, ready to reveal itself. So just keep that comparison in mind. If you are going after these items, it's probably not a good idea to pay extreme premiums for them, because as we know, Nintendo does have a history of re-releasing a lot of these products into the marketplace at multiple intervals. And what seems to happen is a lot of the Timmies and Kimmies and Poindexters out there that don't know any better, if they pay a reseller like me a premium to get them, then Nintendo announces a restock. Well, guess what? Now you should have waited, because you can get them directly at retail for what? $15.99 a piece. That's pretty much the suggested retail price of Nintendo Amiibos in the year 2024. So use caution out there. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you want me to do more videos on Nintendo Amiibos, I happily will. This was just a brief history of Amiibos and where we are today in 2024 and where we're potentially going with this particular product line, from the potential of somebody who invests in these markets, both over the short term and over the long term. Thank you for watching, and have a great evening.